Hey, today I thought I'd talk about my experience with coming back to Dragon Mark for Death. I basically left this game because at the time I had the best gear and it was very broken, and the DLC was not out yet. However, it seems like from what I've learned the past few months, it seems like the community has been in a very rough state. I'm going to do my best to go over what I know. I have not really played since pretty much before the DLC dropped, back when the Amulet of Darkness Plus One was like the most broken item in the game. So a lot of this stuff is new to me. However, a lot of the problems I had with the game are still not fixed. Now, before I start, I should mention that they are currently working on a big patch that's going to have like new weapons, new move sets, and apparently new characters as well.
Dragon.
So for all we know, most of these issues may not even be, existent in the next few weeks. The next stream is supposed to be on the 26th, and we assume that the patch is going to be on or slightly after that date. So they have fixed a few of the complaints. One issue was the lack of build variety. Basically everyone was running the same thing. A lot of that came from the Amulet of Darkness Plus One, but a lot of the loot in the game is not very interesting. That is definitely something that needs to be worked on. But they did kind of come to a compromise. You have this contract system, which basically lets you play the game in different ways. Like this is the default one. This one makes it so you can only air dash once, but you do more damage, and you also have increased lock-on time, so you can get more DPS that way. And this one gives you more air dashes, but they're shorter in distance, and you can summon shurikens when you do the dragon kick. So this actually helps quite a bit. I actually have been enjoying messing around with this feature, and they do make it easy to switch between them. You can also still reset your builds as well. So they added these quick commands, which are actually pretty nice because they let you quickly heal, which was definitely a problem online. It was basically impossible to save yourself if you were like low on health or you wanted to use a miracle powder to heal the rest of your party. You had to basically menu through it, and there's definitely a significant delay on some of the menus between like when it transitions from one menu to the next. So it's basically impossible even if you're like an RPG speedrunner and you have like amazing menuing and things like that. So this is actually pretty nice. I've been making pretty liberal use of this. They have added some new loot. A lot of this stuff was basically over-leveled loot, which meant that at the launch of the game you could get stuff from anywhere from level 60 to 100, and basically would not get to use the affixes on it, and I guess it wouldn't do much damage. But as they've increased the level cap, some of this gear has actually become usable. Now, I think one of the more controversial things is that they added this black market here, which is kind of a big band-aid fix for one of the biggest issues with this game, was that enemies for the longest time, beating the trash mobs, were basically pointless. There was never any reason to interact with them. The meta for the longest time, I guess it still is, but it's less of an issue now, is that you just had a shinobi in your party, and the shinobi would basically play the game like Mega Man Zero Gunvolt and just jump over everything. And basically get to the boss gate, and then everybody else would teleport over there, because the trash mobs did not drop anything. They didn't even give good experience, so it's not like you could really grind on them per se. So what they did is they added all the stuff here where you can collect like monster parts or drops, and you can get gear. But the problem is a lot of this stuff is junk. The only things that people really use, to my knowledge, is like the weapons. The weapons do have some use in some builds, but the rest of this stuff is basically pointless. So a lot of people have been suggesting that maybe they add some of the more rare drops, the really RNG heavy ones, in here. Maybe make it a grind, less of a grind than it is now with the bad RNG. But to make it so that there's a guaranteed way to actually get stuff, so that the progression is not completely blocked by RNG like it is now. It's definitely one of the biggest issues. Like for me, I need to get the DKC, which is the Dragon King Crystal, to do the rest of the content, and it just has not wanted to drop. I think I've done at least like 200 runs now, and I haven't even seen anything rare from that level at all. I did get a new Amulet of Darkness Plus One, but that thing has basically been nerfed into oblivion, so no one even uses it anymore. You can see how much potential this feature has, but a lot of this stuff is not usable at all. So one of the biggest issues with this game is that there's just a low chance to get basically anything, and you're going to spend a lot of time on the same maps over and over. Mark for Death has always been one of the biggest grind spots in the game, but the problem is the drop rates are bad there. You know, you can clear that map in like maybe I'd say 2 minutes or so. That's including like loading the map and loading up your party and then sitting through the cutscene and everything like that and getting the results screen. You can pretty much be out and in and out in 2 minutes, and the drop rate is really bad. So they added a Bloody Palace to this, which sounds like a great idea on paper, but the problem is that the only thing that drops anything is the boss every 10 floors. So you have a lot of really good loot. Some of the best loot in the game is at the end of this Bloody Palace. However, you have to grind so much to get there, and it takes like 10 minutes. So you're going for 10 minutes to get the same low drop rate that was already in the game to begin with. So it doesn't really lend itself to being played repeatedly. A lot of people are apparently really burnt out right now because of just how long it takes to get a chance to get something. So I'm going to go through I'll go through the first 10 floors right now so you can see just how long it will take. Let me go ahead and respec. I actually like that there's more of a reason to respec now with the contracts and things like that. Before, it kind of just felt like, you know, if you made like a major mistake or something, you could just kind of make sure that your character's not completely screwed up. But now with the contracts, you can actually, you know, you can use the contracts, you can change those, and then you can respec your build to match that respective contract, which I think is really cool. The gear in this game is still very uninteresting, but it does seem like they are trying to kind of come to a compromise. Alright, I think that should be good.
Yeah, no.
And people have been very pessimistic towards this game, and it's been one of the few times in like a gaming community where I actually agree with the pessimism and the negativity. And a lot of times people complain about frivolous or really stupid stuff, but I think, you know, you have an awesome mode like this and it's just not executed in the right way where you actually are rewarded for, you know, grinding, and it doesn't take too long to get a chance to get something. But the bad drop rates really dampen the enjoyment of this mode. I actually played through it a couple times and it has been pretty enjoyable, but I can see how painful it would be to like actually try to get something from here because of how long it takes to actually get to the point where something will drop. There have been a lot of complaints about the content and stuff. Well, I think that's a valid complaint. It seems like most people just want the current content to be fixed. Like, you know, make a lot of the loot more useful, make the RNG not as bad, which I think is one of the biggest things they need to fix. And then there was one other issue I'll mention once I finish this little run here. So obviously I'm really over-leveled for this, but it takes a significant longer amount of time towards the end because you need a party. And there are some gimmick bosses, like ones that only take damage from a certain damage type, which I think is pretty dumb. I saw somebody trying to get something to get past that boss solo, and it was just even more grinding. I don't really think that's the kind of gimmick this game needs, at least in its current state. You know, maybe if they had like a better RNG, that would be something that may actually be kind of fun to encourage people to play in different ways. But when the drop rates are already this bad, that's just kind of the kind of thing that makes people want to stop playing. Like, there's one boss that's he's immune to magic. There's one you basically have to use piety, and there's one you have to use strength. Apparently, I haven't actually fought all of them yet, but it seems like there's been a pretty vocal complaint. I think the patch looks awesome, but I feel like for the sake of their game, they should have you know, fixed the drop rate sooner than later. So you get 2 boss chests, and that's basically it. So when it starts taking like 10 minutes or so to get to that point, and nothing drops, and the drop rates are just as bad, there's also a pretty decently sized drop pool to draw from. It can be very demoralizing to continue playing. Now I'm lucky. I have actually gotten carried a little bit. I do have better gear than I did before, but I'm not really sure how far I'll take this game. I may very well just wait for the patch. So the final issue I'll address about this game is just the lack of being able to see like what rooms are visible. So like if I pick worldwide right now, it's probably going to show maybe 2-3 rooms at best. See, it shows nobody now, but there obviously are people playing. There are people playing in the Discord as I speak right now. Even if those rooms are locked, like just being able to actually visibly see them will definitely help to kind of break the stigma that the game is dead. It definitely is on life support. A lot of people have stopped playing because of the bad grind. There are some people that have just cleared all the content, which is totally fine. That's definitely when you should stop playing a game. But I think one of the issues is that people are buying this game for $15. You know, you can split the game between the 2 sets of 2 characters, and they're seeing that no one's on, they can't find a party, and they're leaving. At the very least, if you could see that there were a bunch of locked rooms, that would definitely kind of break the first impression that the game is dead. You know, obviously one of the problems as well is the bad RNG. A lot of people are being really turned off by it and not wanting to play anymore. As I'm kind of experiencing it now as somebody who hasn't really played since the launch window, I can definitely see why people are leaving. Even if this patch does fix everything, I think they're definitely going to need to do some work to win back some goodwill. Maybe, I don't really think they can hire any streamers to play it. I mean, I definitely would do it for free. But they just need to get the word out. Maybe do like, maybe a little minor discount. Maybe make it $10 to buy into the game or something. And just make the game more visible. I think people are buying it. It definitely did sell decently as far as I know. But this is like the most like negative reception they've ever gotten for a game, as far as I know, as long as I've been a fan. You know, some people didn't really like Mega Man 04. That game definitely was a step back from 3, but it was still a very, very playable, mechanically solid game. It just had a lot of issues with the new gimmicks that they added. This game in particular just feels like kind of growing pains and trying to do something new. Now, obviously, it is still very much a 2D action game. The controls are very responsive. The pixel art is great. I definitely don't care for the music. It definitely feels kind of more generic, like AAA Western game or like summer movie fare. It doesn't really stick out to me. That's definitely the only part of the presentation that I don't like. Visually and aesthetically, it's a very pleasing game, but it's mostly just kind of growing pains from trying to do something new and having no experience. You know, they've never really done anything with online before. They've never really done DLC to this scale. They've never done post-launch support to this scale either. A lot of their other games like Blaster Master Zero and Mighty Gunvolt Burst and stuff, they've had DLC, but they're still single-player games, so there's not as many issues to fix. Here they're trying to kind of manage a player base and you know, fight the complaints and stuff and keep people playing, and it just doesn't really seem like they have the resources to do that. And I felt like it's been kind of directed in the wrong ways. You know, the Bloody Palace thing is kind of cool, but you know, when the drop rates are this bad, it's not really going to keep people playing for that long, and I think that's what they need to kind of get long-term sales for this game. Indie creates in general, you know, they definitely pump out sequels pretty quickly. I mean, there's only like 2 hours, not 2 hours, but 2 years between Gunvolt 1 and Gunvolt 2, and then Blaster Master Zero and Blaster Master Zero 2, so I'm curious to see how much longer they'll support the game. It's going to be about 6 months to release by the time that they push out this patch, presumably. That's definitely about the amount of support that they generally give their games. Even if the characters are paid, I don't really think people would be against paying for them. It's just that if the grind is going to be as bad as it is now, it's really not going to solve the problem. I think it's actually going to make it worse because they'll have spent all this time and money and resources on the pixel art, and the game will still be just a soul-crushing grind. It feels like mobile game drop rates, and a lot of the problem is you can't even sell a lot of the things that you get. A lot of it sells for 1 gold, I guess, to prevent you from accidentally selling it so that you can't use it for another character or something. But the drop rates are not really indicative of how much content the game has, and that's kind of always been an issue with this game. They kind of have used the drop rate to kind of mask the fact that there's not much content. But now there's actually a pretty decent amount of content. The drop rates have not been adjusted to accommodate for that. So that's kind of the main issue right now. In terms of how much more I'll be playing it, I definitely want to know more about the patch. This video very well could become invalid, kind of like that one I did for how to farm the final boss back when the game came out. Those strats actually don't work anymore. It very much could be invalid. We're all hoping that it will fix the game, but the morale is definitely really low right now. So I hope that things will be fixed. I may play the game for a couple more days, depending on how many more parties I can get. If I actually am able to start going towards the end game and maybe start doing runs, then I'll look into it. But right now, the grind has been very demoralizing, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, and maybe tomorrow I'll do a Crystal Crisis overview. Peace.